What is going on, guys? This is the Club of the Man, 1993, and whoa, boy, felt good to reminisce this Rumble match once again. Of course, I'm actually, this time, you noticed it was a slightly different on the editing here. I am actually just recording this through OBS and not just pre-recording one and then editing it together like I did for the women's one. That was my fault. This is going to save a lot of time, so I'm doing it this way. But this is the 36th edition of my Royal Rumble recap and review series. We are going to talk about the 2020 Men's Royal Rumble match. This is the retro recap and review, as I'll have both of these done for this year as we get ready for this Sunday's pay-per-view, the 2021 Royal Rumble match. Of course, as I mentioned, my Raw review tonight, I wanted something to watch to taste out the bad taste out of my mouth I've got and the fears I have for this year's Royal Rumble and look back at last year's. Now, last year's, I do remember I was a little concerned about some things with this match, especially with the big story going into this Rumble match of Brock Lesnar entering at number 1. The thing, though, was Brock Lesnar was the WWE champion. I'm pretty sure they did this because they didn't know who else they had. They didn't have anybody else they had off their mind that wanted to face Brock. I mean, who could have they really gone with at the time? But my thing was they could have done what they did with Brock, but they didn't have to have the title. Him had the title on him. Because if Brock would have won, what would have he done? Like, that was a big problem I had with that build. There was really no true story as to what Brock Lesnar would do if he won the Rumble match, but he was still the WWE champion, of course. But, in my opinion, it worked, and this ended up being one of my favorite Royal Rumble matches personally. I believe my pick to win won in this match. I think I did pick the winner. I'm not 100% sure, or he was at least one of my favorites. But let's roll into it, and we'll recap the 2020 Men's Royal Rumble match. Just like the women's, took place on January 26th, 2020. Unfortunately, the day that Kobe Bryant passed away after a helicopter accident, him and his daughter. The location was at Minute Maid Park in Houston, Texas, home of the 2017 World Series champions, Houston Astros. Of course, at the end, I'll go over the longest time, most eliminations, and the total duration, and the winner, of course, as well. Stipulation, as always, is the number one contendership for one of the world titles at Wrestlemania. And, of course, the champion gets to pick which one they want to challenge. Doesn't have to be the one on their brand specifically. But most of the time, it seems it is that way. But we will roll in, and we will talk about this match. So as I said before, Brock Lesnar, who was the WWE champion at the time, started off the match at number 1. Number 2 was Elias. Elias came out. He did his usual stick, just sung a song. He made up something called Sacrificial Lamb was the song he was going to be singing. But then Brock got tired of waiting around. He went in and he attacked Elias. And after getting some offense in on Elias in the ring, he would then take the guitar that Heyman handed from outside that was laying out there after Lesnar had attacked Elias outside, and Lesnar would eliminate Elias. And I'm like, don't tell me this is what I thought it was going to be. And that's the thing, too. Keep in mind, the first half, I hated this match. Hated it. Because I didn't want it to be Brock Lesnar just picking everyone off one by one. Watching it again, though, I felt the storytelling, though, the first half of this match was still done excellent. Of course, because now I knew that Brock Lesnar was not going to eliminate every single person. And I thought it was going to be that or Roman Reigns was going to win this Rumble match and nothing was going to come out of it. That's what I was worried was going to happen. But here's the thing. Even if the person who won didn't win, if he still would have done what he would have done in this match, I think I still would have been, satisfied, but still not 100% pleased. But, anyways, so he eliminated Elias. Number 3 entrant was Eric Rowan. This is when Eric Rowan was still with WWE, and he had that mysterious thing inside that cage, which ended up being nothing but a toy spider. They basically just was giving Rowan like a small push on Raw, and then out of the blue they just got bored of the spider thing, so they ruined that thing, and then Rowan was one of the people released on April 15th. Only time Rowan has been seen since was when he appeared on the last episode of AEW Dynamite, the tribute show to Brody Lee, his longtime tag team partner in WWE with the Wyatt family and the Bludgeon Brothers. But he got in there, barely lasted in there, and he got eliminated at number 3. Number 4, Robert Roode came down, got a little bit of offense in on Lesnar, but then he got eliminated. Now this one pissed me off. I didn't like this one. Number 5 was John Morrison. Morrison was barely in there and he got eliminated. And this is when Morrison had just came back to WWE. And it was already looking bad because he was supposed to return to the Rumble, but instead they brought him back on the first SmackDown of the new year and randomly reunited him and The Miz. Which could have been good because they were good when they first got to WWE like 10, 15 years ago. But then, yeah, we all know what's happened 1 year later. Two of the biggest idiots on the roster. Correct! So, John Morrison comes back, and the first thing he does is he jobs to Brock Lesnar in the Rumble. That pissed me off. I did not like that one. But then we had a little bit of, just a little bit of spice added to it. The number 6 entrant was Kofi Kingston. And of course, they had just had some history because Kofi Kingston had unfortunately lost to Brock Lesnar in like 6 seconds on the first SmackDown on Fox the previous October. So Kofi comes in there, and he has a good back and forth exchange with Brock. And that leads at least getting some more bodies in there for the time being. Number 7 was Rey Mysterio, who he just had his recent issues with Brock Lesnar, as Brock also would attack his son, Dominic Mysterio. And they had a pretty good match, pretty good no-holds-barred match at Survivor Series, just the fall before. And the double team was working. And then number 8 was Big E. Big E came out as Ray and Kofi had rolled under the ropes and got out of the ring, and Brock was surrounded. So they did a 3-on-1 beatdown on Brock Lesnar. And they were able to knock Brock down with the Trouble in Paradise, the 619. Big E even got to hit a big ending on Brock. When I saw that, I was like, give me Big E and Brock Lesnar. Like, that actually... There was a couple matches I felt that I want to see against Brock that came out of this. Big E and Brock Lesnar was definitely one of them. But they're able to do that. But then I guess they were setting up for Kofi to do his like trust fall or something like that, wherever he jumps onto Big E and like lands into Brock. But Ray went to do it first. Brock caught him in mid-air, and Brock eliminated Ray, and then he jumps over, he like jumps like how many feet over Big E, who was still, waiting, like setting up for Kofi. It was priceless. I don't know what was funnier, that or when Brock did, I shouldn't say funny because it wasn't good, he did that botched shooting star press with his match against Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19. 19? Yeah, it had been 19, yeah, because his last match before he left WWE for 8 years was in 2004 WrestleMania 20. But it was a funny spot. But then Brock would then eliminate Big E, and then it came down to Brock and Kofi, and then Brock eliminated Kofi. So then number 9 was Cesaro. Oh, that should have been the main event of SummerSlam in 2014. That's what I instantly felt when I saw this. But then Cesaro didn't last long, and then Cesaro got eliminated. So now, it's really starting to get under my skin. Number 10 was Shelton Benjamin, who, of course, him and Brock Lesnar were old roommates and tag team partners at one point years ago. So they had a little bit of a history. So Shelton comes out. He, embraces Paul Heyman. He says, "I'm so happy you're here. gets in there, embraces with Brock, and like, yeah, what's up, buddy, and whatnot. So it looks like that they're going to be an alliance. So I'm like, okay, not for long. Benjamin fell for it, and then Brock hit a couple suplexes on him, and then he eliminated Shelton Benjamin. So there goes Shelton Benjamin. Number 11, at one point a couple years ago, would probably be a dream match of mine. Brock Lesnar and Shinsuke Nakamura, who of course came out with Sami Zayn, who was being a manager at the time, the Great Liberator, and I don't know why to this day they still made Sami Zayn a manager. Thank goodness they've actually let him wrestle again, since he was gone for like 5 months due to the pandemic. But thank God they let him wrestle again. He's actually been doing better. Like, this was ridiculous. But Nakamura goes in there, and he gets eliminated by Lesnar. Number 12, surprise return. MVP. First time in 10 years he'd been seen in the WWE, and he came out to a pretty good pop. He would then chase Heyman around the ring, but then Lesnar would pull MVP in to the match. MVP got some offense in, but unfortunately didn't last long, as Brock would then eliminate MVP. So that was unfortunate. But then number 13, I'm like, okay, it's go time here. A surprise entrant at the time in NXT, and the current, at the time, the NXT North American Champion, Keith Lee. Oh, bask in his glory. Boy, do I miss that theme song. Still will not forget the slow drown of no when he made his main roster debut, and they play that song, and they go into that freaking generic. Disappointing. But this was not disappointing. He came in. Brock's face was priceless. He was like, oh, big boy. Like, he looked like pretty eager to go toe-to-toe with Keith Lee. And they had a good, 2-minute exchange, I thought. And Keith even got Brock down also, which was nice. I mean, I don't know if maybe if Brock wasn't the mid-card champion of NXT, they would have done something bigger, but this was just a nice taste as to what those two could probably do in the ring. In fact, I'm going to say this right now. Even though in my Raw review tonight, I said that I would not want to see anybody from Raw win the Rumble, I'd still like to see Keith Lee win the Rumble and go on to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. However, though, there are 2 matches I have in mind for Brock Lesnar at this year's Rumble. I mean, at WrestleMania. Actually, maybe 3. Either him and Kevin Owens, him and Bobby Lashley, which I still think probably the biggest one, or why don't we do, again, if Brock Lesnar comes back, why don't we do Keith Lee versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania this year? Let me leave a poll on that on Twitter. Let me see. Who would you have Brock Lesnar face at WrestleMania this year? Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley, or Keith Lee? Leave me your thoughts. But they had a good back and forth exchange there, and of course I still love Brock's reaction, like, oh, big boy. Number 14 was Braun Strowman. Of course, him and Brock had some history, of course, but then Strowman and Lee got into a brawl, and eventually Brock eliminated both Lee and Strowman. And at this point, I'm just like, great. But of course, this is though where things began to turn around for this match. Well, here's the thing. Now that, of course, I've seen the whole match, of course, again, this all worked. But again, at the time, oh boy, I hated it. And again, Brock even said himself, he was meant to make you hate that match in the first half. But it worked out so well because of who it put over in the end. Number 15 was Ricochet, who Brock had just recently had some run-ins with. And of course, where this leads to eventually, a match between Ricochet and Brock Lesnar at Super Showdown the following month, where Ricochet got squashed, and then immediately the next night on Raw, he jobbed out to Riddick Moss. So Ricochet got buried, unfortunately. But he had a back and forth exchange with Brock and did not get eliminated, which I was surprised. Then came number 16. And I'm pretty sure I wish I had my Rumble predictions still. Probably, well, maybe on Periscope. But I wish I would remember. But I think he was my pick to win this match. I think. Who I felt should win. I think I still set my gun saying it was going to be Roman winning it. But I think the person who I wanted to win was this man. Number 16 was Drew McIntyre. And he was number 16 in the 2019 Rumble match. Well, this son of a gun came in, who just recently slowly turned babyface. I did forget about one thing. He did have the 3, 2, 1 countdown for his Claymore kick. I thought that was kind of corny. They kind of died off on it, which, thank goodness, because I thought that was kind of childish. But, of course, we all know what happened with McIntyre after all this, which we'll get to that at the end. But, McIntyre gets in, goes toe-to-toe with Lesnar. And Lesnar rips off the gloves, bare hands, he's ready for a fight. Well, Ricochet, though, was still in the ring. And to get revenge on Lesnar for what he had done the previous week on Raw, he gives a low blow to Lesnar, and the first of 2 times, well, maybe 3, that I did a massive, massive pop when I was watching this. And I still felt the same way when this happened. Ricochet low blows Brock as Brock is near the ropes, and then Drew McIntyre claymores his ass right out of the Rumble. And I remember when that happened last year, I'm like, yeah, that's what we're talking about. Get out of there. Because, like I said, I hated the first half of this Rumble match. But again, it all worked still in the end. McIntyre eliminated Lesnar. And for the next, 3 or 4 people, because McIntyre started taking people out one by one, as, he had a little bit of a back and forth sequence with Ricochet, but he would eliminate Ricochet then. He just kept looking out looking out for the next, 1 or 2 people while they came down, and just staring down Lesnar. I'm like, that's the match at Mania. At first, I was like, at this point, McIntyre can't lose. You have it right there. He had, at the time, the biggest moment of that Rumble match, and you're just teasing it, just oozing the confidence you can see coming out of Drew McIntyre. And he was hungry for that opportunity. They just illustrate that so well with those stare downs with him and Brock. So Ricochet didn't get eliminated, but Brock, of course, took his time getting out of there. Number 17 was The Miz. Now, let me say this. I wish remember I said earlier how I didn't like how they had John Morrison job out to Brock Lesnar? They should have just had Miz come in number 5 and Morrison come in here and gave him a little more time, I think he would have worked in well, especially with those who came in around this time. But number 17 was The Miz. He only lasted about a half hour before, basically, again, he was just used for McIntyre to make a statement and in front of Lesnar. And then McIntyre would eliminate The Miz. So we have that. And then number 18, entering only his second Royal Rumble match with AJ Styles. Now, based off of what happened, of course, further on in the match, I've heard rumors that Styles actually got eliminated earlier than he was originally supposed to. Apparently, he got hurt in this match. Because I know for the next couple of months, especially for his match with AJ Styles at Elimination Chamber, and I know he took about a month off after the Boneyard match at WrestleMania against The Undertaker, but I think I heard that AJ was eliminated earlier because he was working. He either got hurt or he was working this match hurt, because he worked the next several months hurt, which kind of hurt some of his matches. And if I say hurt one more time, we get tongue twisted. But he came in number 18. Of course, that was a time where it was, at the time, it's just McIntyre and Styles in the match. And that was actually a dream match, which ended up happening at TLC. I still felt the match they had at TLC, though, should have been just a regular one-on-one match, not the TLC stipulation. And this was also whenever he had the OCs, Gallows and Anderson, and this is before they left WWE, and this is also long before Almost came along. Yeah, Almost. Again, the phenomenal one needs a bodyguard. Makes no sense. But he was number 18. Number 19 was Dolph Ziggler. And of course, him and McIntyre, had history together, so they had their shtick there. Number 20 was Carl Anderson. Now, my thing is about, though, they put the two members of the OC in there. Originally advertised Rusev and Bobby Lashley, but they got taken out of the match storyline-wise because of their feud going on. And then we also were supposed to have Tucker and Otis in the match, but they got taken out. Because this match had a lot of people already announced. So that's another reason why I wasn't as hyped for this match at first. Because there was a ton of people already announced. And not many room for surprises. But they basically took out Heavy Machinery for the OC. And the fact that Styles would be eliminated before Gallows came out made the OC being in there a little more pointless. But like I said before, I think it happened because Styles got hurt in this match. But Carl Anderson came out at number 20. And it was basically, for the most part, until Ziggler and Styles got into it, it was mostly a 3-on-1 beatdown on Drew McIntyre. But then we got, to me, the biggest moment of the night. Now, there were rumors circulating about it, but I didn't want to believe it until I saw it. Number 21. And this was the second time that I popped. Big time. At my friend's house. Number 21, after a 9-year absence, was the Rated R superstar, the WWE Hall of Famer, who was told he would never wrestle again when he had to retire just 1 week after retaining the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 27 back in 2011, Edge. Edge made his long return after being told he would never wrestle again after triple fusion neck surgery. It was awesome. I mean, knowing what would happen later on in the year, as this was probably like the last, well, we did have, of course, the Elimination Chamber as like the last pay-per-view and like 1 or 2 episodes of Raw or SmackDown before the pandemic went into effect and live crowds were taken away. But this is one of the you watch this show and you just remember that this is one of the last big hurrahs, like some of the biggest, happiest moments we had to celebrate together in person in 2020. And you just see this moment and the emotion in it. Those who had always who were always huge fans of Edge when he was around. Those like me who didn't get to see Edge wrestle live, and now I get to see it. And just the emotion this man had when he came in. He was excited. He ran up the ramp, and when he came through the smoke, you can see that emotion like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. They still love me. I can't believe this is happening after all this hard work. I'm back! And I'm like, you go, man. Now, there was an error that it was corrected on the new network version, of course, but the cameraman did not get the first spear when he speared Ziggler originally. But when we watched it back on the network, they did correct it, and they got the first spear from Edge in 9 long years. And let me tell you something. Throughout this entire match, Edge was in there for almost 25 minutes, I think it was. He was in there for one of the longest out of anyone. You would not have thought this man was out of the ring for 9 years. He looked excellent. He was in excellent shape. He was not rusty at all. I thought he was smooth. Again, I was impressed with a man who was out of the ring for 9 years. And again, at 46 years old at the time, he could still go really good. So he came in and just speared everyone like crazy. He had a stare down with AJ Styles. But again, that sequence though, from when he first got into the next entrant, again, it was just about Edge just literally just dipping his toe back into the ring. It was a beautiful moment, and just, oh goodness, one of the best, most exciting moments, I would say, before the pandemic. I'd say probably that was as big to me And then I didn't feel that much energy after that night, probably until Roman Reigns returned as a heel at SummerSlam. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like one of those moments, but I marked out. I completely marked out. I'm so happy again that Edge has been able to come back and get the opportunity to finish his career on his terms and not the doctor's terms. But like I said, he looked excellent in the rest of this match that he was in. Number 22 was King Corbin, who of course he had been in the Falls Count Anywhere match with Roman Reigns earlier on in the night. Then AJ Styles got eliminated by Edge. Like I said, I think it was because Styles got hurt. He's supposed to be in there longer because, of course, Luke Gallows would eventually come into the match too. Another nitpick about this match. Number 23 was Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle came out and didn't even last a minute and a half. He got eliminated by King Corbin. I didn't like that booking. That already gave me fears for Matt Riddle to come to the main roster. Of course, he would come to SmackDown in the summer, like not long right after Backlash, or around Backlash. But then, of course, he squandered, and now he's just Riddle, and yeah, he's annoying as hell, unfortunately. But yeah, I knew the way he was booked in this Rumble match. I'm like, okay, I do not have a good feeling about this guy being on the main roster. And he was eliminated by King Corbin. Shadow of the Future, as to a feud that Riddle had most of his time while he was on SmackDown before he moved over to Raw. So I didn't like that one. Number 24 was Luke Gallows, and then Drew McIntyre would eliminate King Corbin. Number 25 was Randy Orton. He got in the ring, and him and Edge immediately reunited for Rated RKO. And they both immediately eliminated both Gallows and Anderson at the same time. And they're like, all right, let's get it rolling here, get the band back together, which was a nice spot to see. And this is when Orton, for like a month, was briefly a babyface. I still don't get what the point of him turning face was. He literally only turned face just to have a TV feud on Raw with AJ Styles. Which those were not, unfortunately, some of their best matches, unfortunately. Now, their best match, I'd still say, I mean, they've had 3 good matches. They had a good match on Raw this past year, whenever AJ Styles was fighting to become number 1 contender for the WWE title for TLC. Their match at WrestleMania 35 was great, and the match they had wherever Orton won back his opportunity to wrestle for the WWE title at WrestleMania 33 was pretty good. But anyway, so Rated RKO got back together again, well, for the time being. Number 26 was Roman Reigns. And of course, a lot of people were booing Reigns when he came out because they thought they were going to, go back and do the old crap and have Roman win the Rumble. I'm like, don't do it, WWE, don't do it. Even at this point, I'm like, okay, we got a big match already set up with Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar, so if Drew doesn't win, we at least still got that set up, because technically Drew can make a case he did because he eliminated the champion from the Royal Rumble match. Reigns didn't eliminate Ziggler. Number 27 was Kevin Owens. Number 28 was Aleister Black. Oh boy, do I miss Aleister Black, and do I miss that theme music. Changed his theme, turned him heel, he's been off TV for months, where the heck is he? Number 29 was Samoa Joe, which is probably one of Joe's last matches, because then he got suspended for violating the wellness policy, then he had a concussion, he's been on commentary ever since, so I don't know if Joe's ever going to come back and actually wrestle in the ring. And number 30 was Seth Rollins, 2019's Royal Rumble match winner. Now, remember, this was right after Rollins had just started, he had just turned heel right after Survivor Series, and he started up his Monday Night Messiah gimmick. So he came out with the Authors of Pain and Buddy Murphy, and they just wrecked shop. They didn't eliminate anybody right away, but they at least brawled with the 2 guys they were big rivals with, which is Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe. They also threw Randy Orton out of the match also, even though they didn't eliminate him. So they basically just wrecked shop. Aleister Black also got affected by them, as him and Buddy Murphy had a history going on at the time. Thanks to a distraction, though, from Buddy Murphy, Aleister Black was eliminated by Seth Rollins. And then Kevin Owens goes to toss Seth Rollins out, but then Rollins got caught by the Authors of Pain, tossed back into the match, and thanks to help from the Authors of Pain, Rollins was able to eliminate Kevin Owens, and then thanks to a distraction from Buddy Murphy, he was then able to eliminate Samoa Joe. And then a ringside brawl broke out then between the Authors of Pain, which again, they got released actually back in September. Authors of Pain and Buddy Murphy, and then Samoa Joe, Aleister Black, and Kevin Owens. All 6 of those men got into a brawl, but that would eliminate Rollins' henchmen out of the equation. It came down to 5 people, and of course, Rollins is one of the 5. So he was surrounded by Edge, Orton, Roman Reigns, and Drew McIntyre. And then Rollins is like, okay, we're fine here. He goes to the Romans like, here, come on, you and me. Just like old times say, you and me. Roman wanted none of that. Roman Superman punched Rollins, and then basically each of the other four remaining got to hit their finishing maneuver on Rollins before Drew McIntyre would eliminate Seth Rollins. And it came down to the final 4 of Randy Orton, Edge, Drew McIntyre, and Roman Reigns. And it seemed that Edge and Orton, who were having a lot of fun together, I should say, was still sticking with Rated R KO. And they were doing good until Orton teased that he was going to eliminate Edge. But he's like, I saw you not going to do that. And then when Orton was caught off guard, Edge eliminated Orton. Orton obviously didn't like that, and that would set up for the big turn when Orton tried to put Edge back on the shelf the following night, starting into their feud, leading into their last man standing match at Wrestlemania. And then most of this was Roman Reigns and Edge going back and forth. Now, Roman never got to hit the spear on Edge, but Edge hit the spear on Reigns, but then they were fighting on the apron, and then Roman Reigns would eliminate Edge, which definitely got him some heat for sure from that. Of course, it would eventually lead as he transitioned into a heel later on in the year when he came back at SummerSlam after taking the summer off due to the pandemic. And then came down to Reigns and McIntyre, and I'm like, don't do this, you know the right thing to do here. They did the right thing. McIntyre claymored Roman, picked up Roman, tossed him out of the ring. Drew McIntyre wins the 2020 Royal Rumble match. I couldn't be any more happier for Drew McIntyre. The pop he got when he won that match was just phenomenal. And if you could imagine the pop he would have gotten when he beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 36 last year, would have been amazing as well. Again, the journey that Drew McIntyre went through, he was fired by the WWE, literally had to start over from scratch, reinvent himself in general. He came back in 2017 at TakeOver Brooklyn. Was it? No, it was TakeOver Orlando. He came back. Yes, he came back TakeOver Orlando, and then he would challenge Bobby Roode at TakeOver at Brooklyn 3, have a brief run of the title before he got hurt, then came up to the main roster in 2018, was a tag team with Dolph Ziggler, went on his own, had some up and downs in 2019, and a brief injury he was out, but then 2020, beginning of the year, they instantly just turned him face, and he just got over naturally. And you want to know why Drew McIntyre got over naturally? Was because he basically was just himself. He told the story of his own journey. And that, to me, is what made Drew McIntyre a successful champion and a very successful babyface. Is that he's just been himself. I mean, he's had some overdone things while being champion. Like he had a lot of matches against the same people. But to me, I think he's made the best he can. And this Rumble victory was just the start of all that. And with that being said, guys, that is my recap and review of the 2020 Men's Royal Rumble match. again, your winner of this match, again, was Drew McIntyre. McIntyre was in there the longest out of anyone in this Rumble match at 34 minutes and 11 seconds. The most eliminations, though, Brock Lesnar with 13, because he basically eliminated just about everyone in the first half. And he, of course, now holds a new single record for most eliminations in a 30-man Royal Rumble match. He actually tied with Braun Strowman, who eliminated 13 at the Greatest Royal Rumble in 2018. But, of course, that one to me doesn't count since it was 50 people and it was just on a glorified house show. My thing, though, is I don't like how that's kind of a record, because it just... You knew Brock Lesnar would easily do something like that. So, like, could they really have given that to somebody else? You know what I mean? But, you know, whatever. But Brock got 13 eliminations. McIntyre was in there for the longest at 34 minutes and 11 seconds. And the total duration of this match was 1 hour and 50 seconds. And the winner, Drew McIntyre. And overall grade, gave it an A-. Very great Rumble match. Some really good storytelling. A couple little teeny little nitpicks, but how could you have not enjoyed this Rumble? From McIntyre getting his moment, eliminating Brock and going on to WrestleMania, and then becoming a very, very excellent two-time WWE champion, to the return of Edge, the reunion of Rated RKO. Keith Lee having his moment against Brock Lesnar. A nice sequence we had with Kofi Kingston and Big E and Rey Mysterio trying to take out Brock also, with their history with him. A lot of great spots in this match. A lot of great storytelling. A lot of great history. Can't deny it's one of my favorite Rumble matches. So I gave it, again, an A-. So guys, that's going to do it for both of the 2020 Royal Rumble match recap and reviews. Again, I'll be back up here again next year to do this for the 2021 Rumble matches. Hype? It's a little bit off for it. So I can't say I'm excited, but I also can't say I'm not too worried yet. So we'll see what happens with it. So guys, once again, what are your thoughts on the 2020 Men's Royal Rumble match? And I will post a poll on Twitter. Again, who do you think Brock Lesnar should face at WrestleMania this year? Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley, or Keith Lee? Make sure you guys always leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Be sure as always to slap a like on the video and subscribe or comment to my channel. And follow me on Twitter at DemandAirboy93. Until then, guys, I am out. Have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you all later. Peace out, everybody.